Welcome back into the Blurred Wire, everybody. Today we're talking about Secret Invasion. I know I recorded a coverage of the first three episodes as they came out, and then didn't really get a chance to record one specifically for each of the last three episodes. So today I'm just recording kind of a amalgamation of like the last half of the series because I mean it's the same thing you've been hearing from everybody. I mean, unfortunately, Secret Invasion just ended up being this huge disappointment. I mean, it's not really a surprise. We'll start at the beginning and then kind of do a whole review of it. Honestly, I can't even say I know where everything went wrong for Marvel in this one because it started off so strong. So strong. Like, we had Nick Fury, obviously, is like the center point of this story, but the twist with having Maria Hill get killed in the first episode, it really felt like we were going to like Secret Invasion. I mean, it really felt like we were going towards like Winter Soldier types of espionage kind of storyline, and then it all just fell off so badly. I think when they revealed that Nick Fury was married at the end of season 2, like that was kind of a cool storyline that I wasn't expecting, but it feels like they tried to almost shift it to more focus on their romance when the episodes weren't long enough to really delve into that, nor were there enough of the episodes. Like, to me, that's a whole nother side plot when we still need to more further develop Gravik and Gaia. And like, you have all these characters coming together and you introduce this new one who's supposed to be Nick Fury's love that we haven't known, even though we've known Nick Fury for 15 years. It just didn't feel cohesive. And really, as each episode got shorter, they got worse. It feels like they got worse. Like, maybe, it honestly feels like Marvel just kind of like ran out of money on their production budget. And this show doesn't even look like it was that expensive. By the time they got to the big CGI fight at the end, it still didn't look that great. Like, I wasn't like amazed by it. And it just completely tapered off for me. And it's really sad because this was shaping up to be like one of my favorite MCU projects. And I think it's worse because like I knew what She-Hulk was gonna be before it came out. And I didn't like, based upon the trailers and everything, I didn't think I was gonna like it. And then I watched it and I didn't like it. So, it wasn't really that big of a surprise. But when a show starts off so strongly and then just lets you down like this, it's just, I don't know, it's like on a whole different level. You feel betrayed for like all the time and investment that you put into it. So we'll kind of break it down a little bit just on some of the things that just didn't work for me in Secret Invasion. So like the number one thing is obviously the whole storyline when it comes to the Harvest. The Harvest was supposed to be like Nick Fury's plan. He got all the DNA of the Avengers from the battle for Earth when they were all fighting Thanos, and that was the thing that Gravik wanted. But like having that be such a powerful MacGuffin for the movie made absolutely no sense because, first of all, Gravik only got these powers like to become a Super Skrull and everything. Like, he got the Extremist stuff, he put all that together because he wanted to use those powers to help him take over the Earth and take it away for humans. So the fact that he would bargain for the Harvest to stop his plan that was already in motion for this doesn't make sense. It's not consistent with his character. I don't see Gravik ever doing that. Why would he say like, "Oh yeah, I'm about to get the US and Russia into nuclear war," which is exactly what I want and exactly why I got these powers in the first place. Why would I trade all of that for a bunch of powers for the Harvest to get a bunch of powers when all I want is for the Earth to be destroyed so that way the Skrulls can live here forever? Like, that inconsistency was just, it didn't make sense. So it didn't seem realistic at all when he was like, "Oh yeah, sure, I'll trade everything I've been working on, my entire plan, for just this one vial." And sure, there's a lot of cool powers in there. I get it. But his goal throughout the whole show was not to get more powers. His goal throughout the whole show was to destroy humans. So if he's got the plan in motion to destroy humans, he has no reason to try to change that. It just doesn't work. And then, for Nick Fury to have this plan in place where he's like, first of all, for Nick Fury to even get the Harvest doesn't make sense because why would he collect the DNA of all the Avengers to like build his own team of Secret Invasion? Like, Nick Fury gonna give himself these powers? Like, obviously Nick Fury didn't have the idea that he could give these powers to his Skrull army that he was using as like espionage throughout all the years, because he was super surprised when Gravik had Skrull powers. When Gravik had Super Skrull powers, like, that was a huge surprise to him. So why would he have them gather all this DNA at the Battle of Earth? It just, it's not a consistent storyline and it doesn't make sense. There's really no reason for it to be in there. And I think that was probably the biggest issue with the Harvest itself, with the ending of Secret Invasion too. And especially because some of these powers included like Captain Marvel. And like for Nick Fury to give those to Gravik on this whole plan where he's like, yeah, I'm just going to have Gaia pretend to be me and then she's going to end up killing him. That's a lot to put on one person, hoping that the plan goes perfectly. Like, what if when he took the Harvest, if he just happened to kick Nick Fury out of the Collider, then Gravik would have gotten all those powers and Gaia would have had nothing to defend himself with? Or what if Gaia just lost? Like, Nick Fury has no reason to believe that she's going to defeat Gravik successfully by herself. And Nick Fury's whole mantra is to create a plan, is to get other heroes to help him fight his battles. So his whole thing of saying, like, I got to do this on my own, again, does not make sense. It feels like Marvel wanted to do this storyline, and then once they got halfway through writing it, or even like three-quarters of the way writing it, they realized they had all these conflicting narratives, and they were like, you know what, maybe the people just won't notice, instead of like rewriting it and trying to give us a good story. So, I mean, honestly, it's like everything kind of fell apart from just that. Like, as soon as they started mentioning the Harvest, that's kind of where the whole storyline fell apart. I feel like if you remove that, it fixes a lot of issues with Secret Invasion. The Rhodey reveal was kind of unsatisfying. I mean, we could kind of figure he was a Skrull. I feel like it's almost more interesting if he's not a Skrull, but at the same time, it makes sense for him to have been played by a Skrull. It definitely wasn't since Civil War, though, because that creates a whole nother slew of problems that people have talked about before. Whether how long has Rhodey been a Skrull? And the director was like, well, I think Rhodey's been a Skrull since Civil War. And it's like, well, clearly you haven't watched any of the Marvel properties with Rhodey in it since Civil War. Because, first of all, the War Machine suit is supposed to be coded to Rhodey, just like the Iron Man suit is coded to Tony Stark. Now, I suppose maybe a Skrull with the DNA of Rhodey, because she turned into him, could be tricking it. But I feel like it's got like some kind of, I feel like that's still just like a really weak explanation as to why the Skrull was still able to use it. Like, I don't see like a Skrull being able to use Tony Stark's suit. Like, if someone pretends to be Thor, that wouldn't make them worthy to pick up the hammer. Maybe that's a little bit different, but again, Tony Stark's technology is very advanced. And then secondly, someone pointed out multiple times, Rhodey has been to the garden. The garden. This planet that's just empty. And I mean, even if the garden is the planet that's empty, you know, when Thanos at the beginning of Endgame was, where he revealed that he destroyed the stones. And it's like, so Rhodey was there, saw a planet that was empty, knew that's exactly what the Skrulls needed. I mean, I don't know if that planet was still under Kree control. It definitely didn't seem like it, because Thanos was there completely by himself. And seeing as Thanos wiped out half the population in the galaxy, if it was under Kree control, I feel like the Kree would have arrested Thanos because he killed half of their people. So, like, what reason would they have for not just going to the garden? Obviously, they have enough ships to get there. You just take the Milano back and forth. Like, and Captain Marvel has seen it, which also didn't really make any sense. Because again, Nick Fury, we'll get into that in just a second, but it's like that whole Rhodey has been a Skrull since Civil War. It just doesn't work on so many levels. So I think he was changed after Endgame. I mean, some people, like, it's cool to have the idea that like maybe there's a Skrull out there that we didn't know has been a Skrull for this entire time. And I don't know who I would have picked to be it in the MCU. Sometimes an idea like that can seem so cool, but it just, in reality, it just doesn't work. Even if we pick a lesser hero who hasn't had like that much of an impact on the series itself, like Maria Hill. it still feels like you take away from everything that she's done in the MCU because you changed her character to a Skrull. And like it can kind of work in the comics, but it's just one of those things that doesn't really translate well to TV because I can't think of anyone who, because as soon as you replace them, anything they've done as a Skrull becomes completely cheapened and almost ruined, like essentially. And so you're kind of ruining a character when you do that. So if you do that as like a big twist, first of all, it's got to pay off really well, and second of all, it's got to actually make sense. Rhodey did not make any sense to be a Skrull this entire time. So I still think he was from Endgame. They left it pretty open. The fact that he was in the hospital gown is what the director is hinting at. But also, like, how are you not going to answer that for how long he's been there? Like, that didn't make any sense. Honestly, I think the series would have been so much better because, like, they put so much budget into it for CGI and for the battle at the end. I'm honestly thinking if you had just kept some of those, like Maria Hill, if you kept her in throughout the storyline and made her death more towards the middle, even Martin Freeman kept his storyline going on throughout the whole thing. Like, use some of that budget money to pay some of these actors to be more in it, and maybe brought in some more Marvel actors that we know and love, and just focused on the espionage. We didn't even need Super Skrulls for this storyline. Like, it's part of it, but it's like you could have saved that for another one. That feels like a movie thing. For this, like, they all could have, and it would have made perfect sense as to why the Skrulls were mainly in human form, because it's a secret. They're not trying to reveal that they're here. So for most of the show, they could just take place with them being in human form. And you could have recreated Winter Soldier, essentially. But it's just, it flew off the rails because they just tried to, I don't want to even say go too big for it, because that's what Marvel's known for. It's just, it feels like they didn't like pay attention to the details and how that might mess things up. Because now you have Gaia, who's just this stupidly overpowered character. Stupidly overpowered. And I use the word stupidly in particular because you're sitting there with all these powers, and then you're going to show that you have a Drax arm. And it's like, even that fight scene, like, it should have been way cooler than it was. I'm sure it was like millions of dollars to make. It was only like 7 minutes. It wasn't even 7 minutes, probably only 5 minutes or so. And even the scene where like she grew the mantis ears and like put him to sleep. The mantis antenna and put him to sleep, it just didn't hit. It just ended up looking kind of goofy. And it's just one of those things that's like, maybe they poured too much into it, or no one thought that it would look goofy after they did it. Or they were like, you know what, it's just part of the storyline. We already did it. It's here. It just feels like a huge wasted opportunity for Marvel to have made something really, really cool. Like, honestly, really, really cool. I was listening to a couple of other podcasts on it, and they were talking about how the whole story with, especially the xenophobia that randomly came at the end. First of all, it was super random, and it could kind of be consistent with the president's character, but it doesn't really work because like he's only known about the Skrulls for like a minute, and then he goes on this whole rampage against aliens. And I'm like, that also was a missed opportunity because that's a deep storyline about xenophobia. You know, aliens are living on Earth. Like the last big conflict between the government that kind of, you know, had to do a little to do with Civil War and I had a little bit to do with Winter Soldier and then into Civil War was the fact it was the Avengers being able to do whatever they want. Well, now there's all these aliens here, and they touched on it a little bit in She-Hulk too. Like, do we need more laws for aliens? We have a whole nother continent full of aliens. And Secret Invasion could have touched on that, but at the beginning. And I think it would have changed up the plot line a little bit, but it's like, you know, if they did something where, well, first of all, to the beginning of the storyline, Gravik's parents should not have been killed by a Kree. As much as they wanted the personal connection between Gravik to be him and Nick Fury, all I see is like an agent that signed up for this. He killed somebody, and that's what made him go crazy and decide he needed to kill all the humans. But it still doesn't really explain why he's so angry towards humans, because he killed a human who had a family. And that's why he said, like, that's what made me so crazy, Nick Fury, because you made me do this, and that's why I wear this face. And it's like, but Gravik understands his plan. He's going to be killing humans and their families. So for that to be his reasoning as to why he hates Nick Fury doesn't really play off, because like it kind of makes him more sympathetic, but we need a reason for him to hate humans, not just like be disturbed that like he took the face of a human. And if anything, he should be wanting to kill Nick Fury and then just be like, I killed Nick Fury, okay. Even if he wanted to take the Earth, like again, like his whole thing was like, that human had a family? And it's like, if I'm Nick Fury, I'm gonna be like, you know how many families you're gonna kill, Gravik, when you destroy the Earth? Hello? It's like just basic common sense, like just didn't really seem to apply to like even character motivations. And it's like, if you have like Gravik and his parents, because he was still young when he came here, imagine if Gravik's parents were the ones that signed up to be on Nick Fury's like secret task force, and part of what allowed him to be so get so successful at espionage, because he had these people who could just be anywhere and turn into anyone. Like if his parents signed up for that, and maybe he joined them a little bit later when he became a teenager, and then something happens on a mission. Something happens on a mission and they're killed, but not because of the enemy killing them, because something like when Skrulls get hurt, they start to turn back into a Skrull. So maybe they both get hurt on this mission, and an agent who's with them, who has no idea that there are aliens on Earth and no idea that there are Skrulls, sees them start to turn. This is after the Battle of New York, so aliens freak him out, and he shoots them dead in cold blood. And then the whole event is covered up, and Gravik is kind of taken out of the program. Nick Fury tries to explain or something like that. It's like, that would be super compelling, because now Gravik has a reason to hate humans, because the agent would have been freaked out by the fact that there are aliens standing here next to him, would have immediately registered them as a threat and killed them, especially if he's in the world of espionage. And Gravik realizes that humans only are okay with the Skrulls being here because they're humans, because the Skrulls look like humans. He realizes the humans are always going to hate the Skrulls for just who they are as Skrulls. And so with that, he could have formulated his own plan, and then him and a couple of other rebel Skrulls knew that they needed, and also a huge issue with this storyline too is, I always thought Captain Marvel set this up very poorly, because the Skrulls in the comics have always been notoriously evil. There's no lines, they are just bad. And so in Captain Marvel, when you set them up to kind of be benevolent, it's hard, because now if you ever want to do a Secret Invasion storyline like they wanted to do here, it ruins it, because they can't be benevolent anymore, because now they're the enemy. And so now somehow you have to make that change. You basically have to make the Skrulls have a villain origin story instead of just being aliens that want to take over the Earth. Like now you have to have a reason for them to turn from being good guys who don't want to harm anybody into bad guys. And so to do that, Gravik would have needed to really reveal the secret, like the secret that Skrulls have been here. And so if it could have just been a few Skrulls, because all they have to do is get into high points of government and stuff. He could have been the one that started this wave of anti-Skrull hate and not wanting Skrulls here, not wanting aliens here, and people realizing that there are Skrulls living on Earth. And he could have told Nick Fury, like, the secret's out, Nick, everybody knows. And that could have been the theme throughout the entire Secret Invasion. And now Gravik has all these Skrulls, like Talos said, millions of Skrulls living on Earth. All these Skrulls are coming to his side because they're being harassed, picked on. Some are even being attacked because they are Skrulls. And that's how Gravik gets them to join his side, right? And that's how he gets them to come over and become like, hey, we're going to take over the Earth from the humans because they hate us. All of that is super compelling, and that would have worked super well. No need for any Harvest. No need to wait to the end to introduce this anti-alien storyline. And that would have been a good reason for we would see like a lot of Skrulls. We could have seen Gaia talking to Talos and being like all this hatred and everything that's out there. And Talos, and maybe the Skrulls don't realize that the Skrulls would never think that it's Gravik the one who's insinuating this hate, because he's the one that's so determined to fight it, right? And I think another thing Gravik could have realized, the whole storyline for why the Skrulls are on Earth is still extremely unclear. And so one of the things that could have really like drove that needle between Gravik and Nick Fury is at the end of Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers is flying away with the Skrulls following her to find something, to find a planet. And maybe they can't, it's hard for them to get out of Kree-controlled airspace, and so it's hard for them to find a planet, and they need to restock on resources. So we should have got a scene where, like, the Skrulls have come back, and they're restocking on resources to go back for the journey. And then, if we see a transmission between Nick Fury and Captain Marvel, because Nick Fury realizes, yo, I have the most intense, I have the best intelligence operation right here in these Skrulls. And I can make them do whatever I want, and I'll have a network that can protect people across the earth. So he could have transmitted to Captain. I mean, that would have ruined his whole, you only get one communication with me with Captain Marvel, which, again, that was dumb anyway. But if he told her, hey, the Skrulls are actually good to stay here for a while, you don't need to look. I think we're going to find a spot for the Skrulls right here on Earth. And Captain Marvel would have been like, okay. And it would have explained why she's not actually searching for a home for all those years. Because someone traveling at light speed should be able to find a home for them in 30 years. I'm sorry. The universe is not that big. Like, I mean, it's grand, but the Kree, I guess I should say the Kree Empire is not that big. So it could have just been after a couple of years, they needed to get some more supplies, and he could have told her, hey, the Skrulls are good with staying here. And then he could have told the Skrulls, hey, Captain Marvel's just going to keep searching. You guys can stay here on Earth, take some human identities just to protect yourself and just so you don't run out of resources. And then when she finds a planet, we'll go rendezvous with her. And that would have been entirely a Nick Fury thing to do, a lie, something that helps him and he thinks is for the greater good because he's like, I can use these people to do a lot of good. And Gravik should be the one that found that transmission. And all you would have had to do is see him find it, and that could have been the final needle that turns Gravik into, this rage monster against humans and rage monster against Nick Fury. Because from the way they wrote it, I didn't really feel it. Like, I didn't really feel all of Gravik's anger seemed like it should have been just towards Nick Fury. It didn't really seem like enough rage to take out on the entire human race. It didn't. They didn't develop him enough. And partly because the episodes were so short, and they also didn't give him enough reasons to become this enemy. So, and then, towards the end, Nick Fury could have revealed to not only Gravik, but could have revealed to a bunch of Skrulls that Gravik is the one that's been getting you guys killed because he's the one that's been starting up this wave of anti-alien hate. And he's like, together, we can work to change it. And I apologize for not getting you a home. And like, he could have admitted to that and done something. And then, they even still could have had the Super Skrull, but maybe in the final confrontation, Nick Fury's actually talking to Gravik. And then when Gravik's about to kill Nick Fury, Gaia comes in and reveals that she got the four powers that Gravik had, and they fight off, and Nick Fury helps. Maybe Nick Fury's the one that shoots him, or Gaia can be the one that shoots him. Or like Nick Fury's about to shoot him, and Gaia just kills him because she wins. Something like that. Like, it could have been so much better. I really didn't like the scene where Gravik flipped out on his own Skrulls and the Skrulls thought that he was a little unhinged because, again, it kind of makes sense because it's like the Skrulls are this benevolent people and it's like they're going to destroy the whole Earth because Nick Fury's taking too long. That doesn't work. And so it made sense to why they all were not so on board with Gravik's murderous plan because he didn't have enough reason or enough motivation to be this murdering genocidal psychopath that wants all the humans on Earth to die. That's a lot to go from, to be all the humans want to die. And we need to kill all the humans. And so it made sense why the Skrulls turned on him. Didn't like the scene though, because we see, what made Namor such a great villain was that he cared so much about his people that he was willing to kill every single person in order to get there. And so while Gravik, if he had instituted the anti-Skrull hate, he would have reasoned to himself, this is already how humans feel. And I know because they're the ones that killed my parents. And he could have just reasoned, yes, some Skrulls will die when I do this, but we're going to get the Earth as a result. He's not making humans do anything other than what they would have done anyway. He's just letting them know. And that could have been a really awesome psychological battle between him and Nick Fury. And then when Nick Fury reveals that hey, Gravik's the one that's been getting you guys killed, some of the Skrulls might choose to stay with him anyway, and some of them might turn on him, and maybe that's how he's defeated. But either way, a lot of people agree, the best part of the show is probably Olivia Colman. I loved her as an actress in this show. I feel like, overall, I think I don't want to say they spent too much time with her character. Olivia Colman played Sonia in the show. Sorry, her name escaped me for a second. I don't want to say they spent too much time on her character, but it definitely felt like we just needed more time. Like, we needed more time between Talos and Gaia. We needed more time of Gaia. Like, maybe Emilia Clarke, they brought in such a big name actress that, they could probably only have so much money for showing her face at a certain time. But I'm like, if it's too expensive to bring in, an actor that we like and to actually show them develop, then bring in someone else and give us more character development. Like, that's the solution there. Not to bring in a big name person and limit what they do and then just have them show up in a final fight with all the powers of everybody. Because, from the beginning of the show, even, you knew Emilia Clarke was too important of an actress for Gaia to ever really be in any real danger. So, even if when she got shot and everything, it's like, okay, but Emilia Clarke is playing her. You know what I mean? And that's partly why Maria Hill's death was really surprising, because, she had been with the franchise so long. Colby Smulders just doesn't really have the star power that Emilia Clarke has gotten now because of everything that Emilia Clarke has been in. So I was still genuinely surprised and completely taken aback when Maria Hill died. Looking back, it was too soon in the show, and they really did not stick with it. They did it so early in the show that they didn't really, it felt like nobody mourned over her. The funeral was half a scene. Nick Fury just looked more like, dang, I can't believe that happened. Oh well. I should see him bawling his eyes out. Maria Hill's his right-hand person. She's been a very important character to the MCU, to me. And to me, they totally glossed over her death. I thought they were going to get more into it, and they didn't. And they really should have just saved it towards the end. She could have been the big sacrifice during the fight, something. And the way they set it up to be yeah, we're going to show the whole world that Nick Fury killed Maria Hill. It doesn't make sense for that to be the thing of why Nick Fury's wanted and on the run, because who would believe, why would he kill her? It just doesn't make sense. He has no reason to kill the woman who's been by his side for the past 15 years. And maybe people wouldn't think that deeply about it, but to me, it doesn't seem like something that's that hard to explain away. What would have been a really good reason for Nick Fury being on the run is if, again, Gravik revealed to the world that Nick Fury's been using aliens to manipulate world events for the past 30 years and played it like that. Yeah, that would make him wanted, and as well as make him responsible for everything that happened that involves Skrulls. It would make him have to stick with his actions, and not just stick with his actions, but really confront them. Really have to confront them and take responsibility for them, because this is something that you did. Nick Fury didn't kill Maria Hill, but how interesting would it have been for him to be on the run for something that he did do, which is manipulate the world for the past 30 years. So overall, I always thought it was going to be hard. When I first saw Captain Marvel, I was like, oh, okay, well, there goes Secret Invasion, based upon the way they were doing Skrulls and based upon the fact that they said it in the past. I was like, oh, well, once I saw it and I saw that the Skrulls were going to be good people, I was like, okay, well, I guess we're not doing Secret Invasion. And now that Secret Invasion has come out, looking back at what they could have done with the plot, I'm still you still could have made a really compelling story and a really compelling narrative even after making the Skrulls be good guys in Captain Marvel. But you just couldn't pick it together. And I don't know if the writers started getting, maybe it's because of the working conditions that the final product. It really feels like Kevin Feige wasn't involved in this one. I'm sure he was, but he hasn't really spoken about it other than announcing it. And I feel like he got there and was maybe what is this? And they're like, oh, we already finished it and spent up all the budget. It doesn't feel like he was there throughout the whole process. And maybe he's being stretched too thin because Marvel's putting out so many projects. So let me know what you thought about Secret Invasion. Drop your comments below. Feel free to drop your comments below, put a poll up. I'll put a poll up on Spotify to see, are you excited for the Marvels? This is going to be a lead into the Marvels. And I'm like, I don't know if the Kree wanting peace talks at the end of the show is supposed to be the lead into the Marvels, but I don't know. To me, the main issues with Secret Invasion was number one, the harvest, everything that was leading up to making it the whole MacGuffin of the show, the harvest, and two, definitely the episodes were too short. We didn't get enough. Didn't get enough time. Didn't get enough fleshed out. It was too short and it went by too quickly. So let me know what your thoughts are. That's how I felt about Secret Invasion. Overall disappointment, and it's sad because it started off so strong. But we still got some good content. I'll be covering Ahsoka coming out. Like the first two episodes started off with a bang, and that'll actually be my very next podcast. And then I just saw Blue Beetle, so I'm gonna cover that one. And as far as the MCU goes, we still got the Marvels coming out. Loki seasons 2 looks fantastic, and we'll just have to hope for the better things in Marvel to come. All right, until next time, Blurs. Take care.